There's a distortion in the way human beings perceive time that silently sabotages almost everything they try to build. It's a double distortion, operating in both directions simultaneously, and for that reason, it's especially treacherous. On one side, you overestimate what's possible in the short term. You imagine that in a few months you'll be completely transformed, that the project will be running, that results will be visible, that life will have changed in a recognizable way. On the other side, you radically underestimate what's possible in the long term. You can't clearly project what years of consistent work can build because the human brain has great difficulty processing compound growth, visualizing what small and repeated accumulations produce when given enough time. This double distortion produces a pattern of behavior you've probably experienced in some form. You begin something with high expectations for the short term. The first weeks have the enthusiasm of the new, progress seems possible, energy is available. But when the result doesn't appear at the speed you imagined, and it almost never appears at the speed you imagined, the automatic interpretation is that something is wrong, that the method doesn't work, that you're not suited for it, that maybe it's not worth continuing. And you stop, and you start something else. And the cycle repeats. And meanwhile, the version of you that would have existed if you'd continued never appears. Not because it was impossible, but because you stopped too early to discover it was possible. The problem isn't ambition. Ambition is necessary. It's the fuel that initiates any process. The problem is the horizon. When you place the evaluation horizon of your progress in the short term, you're using a ruler that distorts the reality of growth. You're measuring a process that works in years with a ruler calibrated in weeks. And anything measured with the wrong ruler will seem insufficient. Not because it is, but because the measurement instrument is wrong. Think about compound interest, the most powerful and most misunderstood financial concept that exists. $1 earning 1% a month seems insignificant. In 3 months, you have $1.03. In 6 months, $1.06. In a year, $1.12. Nothing that justifies enthusiasm. But in 10 years, that same dollar with that same 1% monthly has become $3 and 300% growth. In 20 years, almost $10. In 30 years, more than 30. The same principle, the same process, the same 1%. What changed was time. And time given to a compound process produces results that seem impossible when you only look at the beginning. Human growth works exactly the same way. The skill you practice every day seems not to evolve in the first weeks. The body you're training seems the same in the first months. The discipline you're building seems fragile in the first quarter. Everything seems too slow, too small, too far from the result you imagined. But beneath that appearance of stagnation, the process is happening. Neural connections are being formed. The muscle is being built. The habit is being consolidated. And at some point, unannounced, undramatic, the curve turns. The progress that was happening invisibly becomes visible all at once. And what seemed impossible a year ago is today's starting point. But this only happens for those who stayed, for those who resisted the temptation to evaluate a 10-year process with a 3-month ruler, for those who learned to distinguish between absence of result and result not yet visible, which are completely different things, though they look the same from the inside. For those who developed patience not as resignation, but as active confidence in the process, the patience of someone who knows they're planting and understands that plants don't sprout the next day, but they do sprout, the patience of someone who doesn't confuse the invisibility of growth with the absence of growth. And here's something that completely changes your relationship with time when you internalize it. The long term isn't a destination, it's a direction. You're not waiting to arrive somewhere in 10 years. You're building every day toward a version of yourself that only exists because you were consistent enough to get there. And the building has value in itself, regardless of where you'll be in 10 years, because each day of process makes you someone slightly different from who you were yesterday. Every session deposits something. Every hard decision built something. Every moment you chose the long term over the short term strengthened the muscle of continuing to choose the long term. And that choice, repeated over time, produces something that goes far beyond any specific result you were pursuing. It produces a type of person, a person who has a different relationship with time, with effort, with expectation, a person who doesn't need immediate gratification to continue because they learned in practice that what's worth having doesn't deliver everything at once. A person who looks at a long process, not with anxiety, but with genuine interest, because they know it's inside the process, not in the result, that the richest life happens. Because the best years of your life aren't the years of arrival. They're the years of construction, the years when you're developing, learning, becoming, the years when each day delivers something new about yourself, about what you're capable of, about where your limits really are. Arrival is a moment. Construction is an entire life. And the person who learns to inhabit the construction with presence and intention lives an infinitely richer life than the person who spends all their time waiting to arrive. There's still a dimension of this topic that very few people explore honestly. The cost of not thinking long term. I'm not just talking about the cost of not acting, already exhaustively explored. I'm talking about the cost of always acting in the short term, of making decisions that optimize the present at the expense of the future, of repeatedly choosing immediate comfort without accounting for what that choice will cost in 5, 10, 20 years. That cost is silent in the present and deafening in the future. It appears in the form of a life that became small through accumulation of convenient choices, of a capacity that atrophied from lack of use, of an identity that was never tested enough to know how far it goes, and it appears too late to be easily reversed. Not because change is impossible, but because the time that passed is the scarcest resource of all. The question that matters isn't what you're going to do next month. It's who you're going to be in 10 years if you keep doing what you're doing today. If you keep the same habits, the same choices, the same relationship with effort and time. That projection, made honestly, is the most powerful self-knowledge tool that exists because it reveals without filter the direction you're actually going, not the direction you say you want to go. And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, that discomfort is valuable. It's the data you needed to make a different decision before time makes it harder to make, because the best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when life pauses. Now, with the time you have, with the conditions you have, with the version of you that exists today, which is imperfect and incomplete and exactly enough to begin. 10 years is a long time. It's enough time to completely transform any area of your life, to develop a skill from zero to excellence, to build something that doesn't yet exist, to become a person you can barely imagine being today. But 10 years only work if they start today. If the first day of those 10 years is this one. Because every great result that exists in the world began with someone who decided on an ordinary day that 10 years of consistency was worth more than a lifetime of intention without action. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and completely underestimate what they can do in 10. Start today. The 10 years have already begun.